Welcome back, knowledge seekers, to this hallowed halls, the sacred library. All right, maybe it's not exactly a sacred library. However, I have gone through my books and I have found a book for you that, as promised, I am here to review. And it is Mary-Grace Fahrun's Italian Folk Magic. We are back in the kitchen today, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a really great book. I cannot express that to you enough. And what drew me to it is kind of a roundabout story. So I had just finished working on a reading, well, both, Raven Gramassi's Italian Witchcraft. And I was super excited to read it. I was really looking forward to it. And I got through it. And it's a great book. It is truly a labor of love that he did. But it didn't quite match what I was looking for. So I was just kind of scrolling through Amazon, and this book came up under suggested, like, viewers or readers have also bought. I was like, that's it. That's the book I'm looking for. And I never got to know my paternal grandmother. She died when my father was very young. I really didn't know my paternal grandfather. He went back to Italy when I was very young, and I didn't really see him after he went, and our relationship was complicated as far as grandfather-granddaughter. My mother's father, my maternal grandfather, he died when she was in her mid-20s. And my maternal grandmother passed away when I was in my late teenage years. So there's a lot of things that either I never got to ask, or as a teenager, really, what do you know? You don't think to ask anything about this. So as I've gotten older, I really wished there were just things that I was curious about, things that I wished I could ask. And I don't really have anybody because that whole older generation is gone. And when I saw this, I'm really trying not to cry. I'm sorry. This book felt like a way to reach across the veil and try and connect with them. I was not expecting to get emotional doing this video, but yeah, there are some things that are very familiar in this book, and then there are a lot of things that are not familiar. So I can start there. And I will make a note here in the beginning because Mary-Grace Fahrun's on her website, it's either on the website or on her book, she does say that she speaks English, Italian, and French. And she also knows a lot of dialects. You're going to notice in the book, because I know this because I went through some of the stuff with my dad, if you were taught what is known as high-class Italian, which would be the Florentine dialect or the Florentine version, that's what's traditionally taught in schools. So if some of the words look funny in here, you're like, that doesn't look right, it might be because it's written in a different dialect. If you grew up speaking a specific dialect, like the Roman dialect, the Neapolitan dialect, Barese, Calabrese, whatever, then these might not seem at all familiar, again, because they're different dialects, or it might be high-class Italian. So that is something to bear in mind when reading the book, because she does give you the prayers and some of the spells in Italian and then in English. So now I want to take a moment to thank my coworkers, because we work on books all day, we read books all day, and we write book reviews, but they're a little different than what you might find on like Amazon or Goodreads or whatnot. So I'm like, what do you want to know, or what would you want to know from a book review on a video? I've never done one of these before. I've seen them. Shout out to Dominic Noble, who does a fantastic job on a lot of book reviews. So I'm like, well, what would you look for? And one of the things that came up right off the bat is what makes the author an authority on what they're writing about. And Mary-Grace has quite the extensive background, and I give her a lot of credit because she has been compiling information for years. Thank you, by the way, to Mary-Grace Fahrun for doing what she does. So she is a registered nurse, a natural health consultant, a Reiki master, a saint magic healer, folk healer, and psychic. So some of you are probably wondering, what is let me back up for a second. Also, her website, Rue's Kitchen Witchery, launched in 1998 and is still going strong. It's still active. There are links in the description, not only for her blog or her website, also for her YouTube channel. So she goes over different things on her YouTube channel. She does a lot of stuff with card reading, saint healing, saint magic. So definitely check her out, and along with other traditional Italian things like the Malocchio or the evil eye. I know I was checking that out. So there's a lot on her channel as well if you're looking for more in-depth information than maybe what's in here. I haven't watched too many of her videos, so I'm not sure if the information overlaps or if it's a different breakdown. So some of you probably want to know is, what is folk magic? So according to the American Heritage Dictionary, folk magic is defined as the practice of using charms, spells, or rituals to attempt to control natural or chance events to influence the behaviors or emotions of others. Now, I tried before I filmed this to see if Merriam-Webster has a definition for folk magic. They did not. You're watching me move everything because, if you can see here in the corner, I have the massive dictionary I bought when I went to college. I thought I was going to be an English major. I became a history major. What they do have is a definition for folk medicine, which is something that comes up in her book. She does give you... Now I'm not going to find it. I do have it written down. I might just read it. So I looked it up earlier, just in case I couldn't find it, because now I'm just going to be flipping through. And folk medicine is our health practices arising from superstition, cultural traditions, or empirical use of native remedies, especially food substances. I believe this definition dates to 1885 to 1900. So I don't know if the definition has changed or if that's no longer how they consider such. They might be considered natural remedies now, as opposed to folk medicine. That's what I'm going to guess. But, so one thing I do want to point out to you in this book is that it is a very dense book. What do I mean by that? Is it hard to read? No, actually not at all. So this book is truly a letter of love to her family, because a lot of it discusses her growing up with her parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, family members, and all the things that she learned from them and from her neighbors that she compiled. So it's part family history, part anthropological record, and part, folk traditions and folk magic that were passed, as they would say, from mother to daughter, father to son, father to daughter. However, these are the things that you would probably have learned at your grandparents, great-parents' knees, as they say. Maybe even your parents know some of these. My mother is waiting for me to finish up some of these videos because she's waiting to get her hands on this. And as you can see, I have gone through, marked up stuff. There's stuff underlined. So to give you an idea of what's in this book, this is the table of contents. So once you get through the general forward, preface, and intro, you have a chapter on the kitchen, sacred spaces and home altars, food, witchcraft or medicine, nature, superstitions and proverbs, amulets and talismans, communication or divination, spells and charms, rituals, the Malocchio or the evil eye, curses, working with spirits, the sacred and the profane, and the conclusion. Some of you might be thrown off a little bit about the chapter on curses, and I'm always a little bit kind of on the fence because I've come across a few books that discuss curses, how to cast them, how to remove them. And Mary Ellen Dugan, if you've ever read Practical Protection Magic, and Miss Ida, I believe I'm saying that right, who is a big writer of books on hoodoo, both kind of cover this. The theory behind this is that there are a lot of good people. However, there are also a lot of people that may unintentionally wish you harm or intentionally wish you harm. And if you want to protect yourself, you kind of need to know how to fight fire with fire. You need to understand how some of these things are cast or are presented in order to break them. However, you can also do that as a Reiki master and a shaman. It does say it's a slightly more advanced training, but it can be done. So that's also something else to bear in mind. But basically, some of the stuff that I've come across in a lot of books are kind of binding spells. So they're basically ways to get people that you don't like or are detrimental to you out of your life. So I know it's a little weird, but don't worry about it. It is kind of what it is. So I had to go get cough drops because I came back from my little pause and thought I hit play and really hit stop. So I was talking and nothing was recording. So as far as those curses are involved, you can skip over the chapter if you want, but usually the idea is you need to know how to fight fire with fire. You have to know how something is cast in order to understand how to break it, and she actually goes through this whole event in her life where she was cursed, and then her friend's grandmother removed it for her. But I do appreciate, though, because she does bring this up, and she talks about how the prayers and spells in the book should be done in the native language. And in this case, it would be Italian. And it's funny because I took 4.5 years of Latin. 4 in high school, independent study in grad school. So for me, when someone says it should be read in like the native language, I'm like, oh, Latin? Something like the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Prayer of Saint Michael. Some of these, because I don't know if you would find some of these in Latin, to be brutally honest. If Italian is not your native language, use the one that is. If you need to use English, use English. Especially if you're like, I don't know any other languages. It's fine. Don't worry. But like if your ancestors are German or French, or if you want to do in like Cherokee or Navajo, Hebrew, Arabic, Greek, Russian, whatever your background is in, use your own native language or the native tongue of your ancestors. And if you don't know what it is, or you don't really know how to speak it, then just speak it in English, and maybe it's an incentive for you to learn, even if it's just basic things in that language. But I really appreciated, because doing house cleansing and sometimes just doing prayer work, I was like, should some of these be read in something like Latin or even Greek? Does it really make a difference? Are they more powerful in their native tongue? I don't know if they're necessarily more powerful, but I think, there is something to be said for that. But again, if you don't know it, then don't worry. She has a dream list in here. There's recipes in here for different days of the week and for holidays. My grandmother used to have like a rotating schedule. It's like Monday was either beef soup or chicken soup. Tuesday was something else. Wednesday was pasta day. Actually, I think she actually did make pasta on Wednesdays. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there would be like a rotating list, but it was the same, roughly the same thing every week. And it's funny because she goes over that. It's like, this is for Monday, this is for Tuesday, this is for Wednesday. So you do see that kind of appear here. And some of you, you may have had grandparents or even your parents did the same thing. She suggests herbs and spices to keep in the kitchen. or, just to start off with, and then you can go from there. You can have an altar, setting up an altar in your house. So this is where this was something that was a little strange to me, was how her family dealt with the saints. So I can honestly say I have an altar of sorts set up in my living room, and it's got a picture of Saint Michael, the Blessed Mother, the Infant of Prayer or Infant of Prague, a statue of the Archangel Raphael, and Saint Joseph. And that's, if anything, I'll light candles in front of them and offer up prayers. But I've never actively tried to, torment the saints. I've never stuffed them in a jar. I've never burned out pictures. I've never threatened them. So that's one thing that she talks about that the elders in her family would do, which was just really weird to me. Because I know my mom, I think, has some broken statues of saints. I think we might have inherited some from my grandmother. They're either, their paint's chipped, or they have actively been broken and they've been repaired. And I don't remember if I heard this in school or if it was just something I had heard or my mother had heard. It was that you don't bury statues of the saints, you don't throw out statues of the saints, you bury them. And we were kind of on the fence when we moved the first time, because we're like, I don't really know if I agree with that. I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe there's a place we can drop them off and they can destroy them respectfully or whatnot, because we both felt funny about throwing them in the trash. So I think I asked a deacon at the church, like, hey, we have these broken saints. What do we do with them? Looked at me a little funny. That's fair. And he goes, no, you just throw them out. Like, oh, you don't bury them? No, you don't bury them. You throw them out. And as I was kind of prepping this video, I fully appreciated the mental image of what I had suggested. Because if you live on the property, it's one thing. You know that there is a little plot in the backyard where all the saints are buried. However, if you end up moving and you sell the house and it's a non-related person and they go to dig up your little saint graveyard, imagine the horror and embarrassment or, confusion that they're going to have when they pull up, when they've accidentally decapitated a statue of the Blessed Mother. St. Francis has been broken in two. The Sacred Heart of Jesus has, you have an arm here and an arm there and the body's over there. You're going to wonder what in the hell you've just uncovered. In plain language, there's no nice way to say it because it's going to be absolutely terrifying. You're going to wonder what kind of magic or whatever was going on at this house and what have you just disturbed? And when I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, no, throwing them out seems like a pretty solid idea because that is a little terrifying. So, yeah, you can throw out your broken statues apparently. But I also appreciate how in this book there is a whole chapter here on superstitions and proverbs that are written both in Italian and English. Some of them might actually be really familiar. Some of them might not be. She's got a whole thing on amulets and talismans. Sometimes they're everyday things. Some of the really big ones are like the cornetto. The amulet in shape of a bull's horn or long chili pepper. This wards against the Malocchio. It is also a protection amulet for men to protect potency. To me, it's always looked like a horn. I know one of my friends called it a pepper. To me, it always represented a horn. Because I believe that's what cornetto translates to. It's horn. It's not pepper. From the Latin and the Italian. Here, dried herbs. Bunches of herbs can be hung on the wall of your home for various purposes. Rue protects against evil. Basil is used for love and harmony. Oregano for prosperity. And rosemary is used to alleviate sadness and grief. So, It's just a lot of everyday household items. Some of them maybe not so much, but how to set them up, how to use them, how to clean them, how to make them. What's really funny is that she's actually going over stuff I've learned. So you can use plain old playing cards for tarot purposes. She calls it cartomancy. I just know it as another form of tarot, though I'm pretty sure she might be right. However, she also tells you how to use Italian playing cards. So Italian playing cards are very different from American playing cards. There aren't as many cards. It's a smaller deck. I bought these because my grandfather used to have these. And I don't know what I did with the deck when we moved, and I really wanted to try again. And it is only how to use the Italian cards. So these are the coppe, or the cups. And these are your hearts. Then you've got, where did it go? You've got your baston, or bastone, which is clubs. So that one kind of corresponds. The denare are the coins, which I believe are like the diamonds. And then you've got spade, which are your swords, so your spades. So, and you don't have a full deck like the American deck goes ace to 10, king, queen, jack. This goes ace to 7. And then you have the dama, or the lady, the cavallo, the horseman, and re, the king. And normally in American cards, it's jack, queen, king. In Italian cards, it's the queen, the horseman, or like your jack, and then the king. So the role of the king and the role of the queen and the jack are flipped. And she explains to you like how to use the cards, how to use them, what their translations are. If you actually know how to use regular playing cards and you are curious, if you're Italian American or if you're just really curious how this would play out, use both sets of directions. Because I actually started doing this because I had a sheet with all of the cards in English, like all the American cards, and I was kind of making notes on it to correspond to this before I got to this. Because of what I do for work, I don't read as much for pleasure anymore, so it took me a lot longer to get through this book than I would have liked. That's not a dig at her writing style. It's very easy to read. It's really informative. It moves along at a really quick pace. It's just that I think I got through maybe half to 3/4 of the book, put it down, and it got shuffled back into my bookcase until I pulled it out and went, oh yeah, I never finished this. But I mean, there's a lot of really interesting stories in here. But yes, anyway, as for the cards, she does give you directions on how to use the Italian cards. So I would be really curious to see if you wanted to try this. Look at her definition, and then if you know how to do this, look at like how the American cards correspond and see how it comes out. You know, are the meanings similar? Are they different? What method really appeals to you is kind of what it's going to come down to, and whose descriptions do you like. The other thing that's really nice here too is you find this more in witchcraft, but if you offer up any prayers or offerings to saints or whatever, you have people coming to you for help, she gives you like a color chart. So you can either wear these colors or you can use them for like intention candles, and you know, you can use that to give a little extra oomph. Like I've done this for friends that have had job interviews. I've lit a green candle for them on the day of, and in hopes that they would get the job. If I want to add an essential oil to it to amplify it even more, sometimes I'll do that. I had another friend that was looking for an apartment. I don't remember what color I used. I might have used a white candle, I'm not sure, but I lit it in front of St. Joseph and asked for him to guide her to the appropriate apartment. So, you know, you can do that. as well. And if you want to, I know it's here. I was flipping through it before when it wasn't recording. Here it is. So there's also like, she breaks down like the days of the week. And if you want to, look for or use the days of the week in order to kind of amplify that, or if you're looking to bring something to you in relating to that, or offer blessings, safety, healing, whatever, you can also use the days of the week. And then there's a corresponding color for the day of the week as well as, or you can switch it up and use whatever candle color you think best. I love some of another thing that she talks about in here that I had learned separately was, I think she calls it book divination. Wait, let me see if I can find it real quick. Because the official name is actually Bibliomancy, but you can do divination by using a book. It's traditionally used with the Bible, but you can really use any book that you know well. I think the first time I took the class, a friend of mine used a cookbook. It worked out amazingly well. I think I used a copy of The Lord of the Rings. Second time I did it, I used the Family Bible. But yeah, so you get some, like, you just kind of, you ask a question, you flip through and you point to a passage and see what it says, and you try and interpret from there. Usually if this is the case, it's going to be in metaphors, so you have to do a little kind of interpretation. It was really interesting when I did it second time, and my teacher made us all bring Bibles or religious books, because one woman had her father's Bible. Her father was a minister, and there were notes written into the passages. So it was really fun for her because she could see what her dad had written in the margins of the book. I would just sincerely recommend this book, if you're really interested, because there's stuff in here about working with animals, working with nature, all of the elements, how to work with the ancestors, how to incorporate your Roman Catholic background into your magic or into your practices. Even into just simple healing methods. Like, you don't have to do the spells and rituals. You can do it. You can just say prayers and maybe, manipulate some of this stuff. Also, what's really nice is, like, some of the stuff was really familiar because one of the ones was the ring test, to see if someone was pregnant or not. The old wives' tale of how someone carries. My mom does this all the time. Oh, she's carrying forward, or she's carrying really, carrying forward into a point. Oh, it must be a boy. Oh, I think it's something like that. I might have just flipped it. There's also working with angels in here. There's working with saints. There's the different Madonnas. Because I know there's Our Lady of Mount Carmel. There's Our Lady of Mount Carmel was my grandmother's patron saint. Our Lady of Pompeii, I think, was the patron saint of one of my great aunts. I also have prayed to her as well. My mother had a devotion to Saint Anthony. I don't think my dad has ever had any that I know of. If he does, he keeps it to himself. But there's, like, I work a lot with Saint Michael as well. Saint Raphael for healing. I work a lot with some of the archangels and some of the saints. So, I mean, there was a couple of saints in here that were one of my great uncle's patron saints from Bari. So it was just really fun to have that connection and be like, oh my gosh, Grandma would talk about that. Oh, Uncle Willie would talk about that. Oh, oh yeah, Daddy, hey, you've mentioned that too. So it's just a lot of fun. And also, like, she has a recipe for Zaples. We're coming up on St. Joseph's Day on March 19th. So if you want to try and make some homemade Zaples, you can use the recipe in here. There's just a lot of, this book is so rich in information that I can't even begin to express how useful a tool it is, and how a lot of it rang true. Not all of it. There were certain things that didn't quite resonate with me or with my family, or were a little bit more foreign. But because I wasn't looking so much book oracle. That's what it was. She talks about the tarot, the trocchi. She's even got a method in here for like how to use the tarot for lottery numbers. I give it a shot. There's just so much information, and I don't think I can truly express to her how grateful I am for her having written this book, because it was a connection to home, and it prompted a lot of conversations around the dinner table with my parents about things that they remembered, their parents or their grandparents or great uncles or aunts doing. And some things were completely foreign to them. They're like, yeah, no, we never did that. So it's just, if I could, I could go on forever and just read through some of these things. And she just, she goes, I apologize, I'm not looking at the camera a lot. It's because I'm flipping through here trying to see what catches my attention, because I didn't really write out a script for this because I had a rough idea of what I wanted to say. I also very much appreciate how she explains the Malocchio, which is known as the evil eye. It's a type of unintentional curse that you might accidentally give to someone from a place of jealousy, anger, lust, love. There's a lot of emotions that can do it. And I remember being in Italian club, because I have tried on a few different occasions to learn Italian. My Italian's not the best. I can read it a lot better than I can speak it. And I remember asking my Italian club teacher about it. She refused to answer. Like, she kind of dodged the question, didn't really cover it. I know I would ask my mom, and she's like, oh, it's like when somebody looks at you with love or with envy, with love or envy or whatever. But I didn't fully understand what it was. And she actually gives a very good explanation of it in here, that I was like, oh, okay, this makes so much more sense now. And I think it might have been just because my mother didn't quite know how to explain it. Like, it's one of those things you know what it is, but you don't know how to verbalize it. Because that's kind of how I feel. Like, I know what it is when I talk about it. But if someone were to ask me to explain it, and people have, I'm like, I don't know how to quite word this. Also, it's like, I don't know how to word this without frightening you, because that's not my intention. So she does go over some stuff in here. We had a different method for dealing with it. Which I may end up doing a couple videos on it down the road. Not right now. But yeah, because like, she talks about how you can use a bowl of water and olive oil, and my mother would sometimes use soup. She'd be cooking on the stove, and she's like, look at all the little eyes in the soup. And out would come like one of the paring knives or one of the knives, and she'd just start making the sign of the cross in the middle of, the chicken soup. So it doesn't have to be just water. It can be whatever you have on hand. If you are an Italian American or Italian Canadian, or you are in the old country and you are, this is something that speaks to you, totally check it out, look it up, check your local library. I don't know what other languages it's in. I didn't think to look. But, definitely check this out. Definitely read it, look into it, buy it. It will connect you, I think, to parts of your heritage that you didn't even know were missing. And it actually makes me want to talk to, I know my teacher had mentioned she knows someone that does Italian shamanism. And after reading this, I'm like, I'd really like to look into that a little deeper in time and try and, study up on that. So different, similar but different paths. So, but that's it. I am losing my voice because I've been talking so much. Hope you have enjoyed this book review. And I have an offer for you that I hope you cannot refuse, and that is to click the like and subscribe button so that you will be notified for more content. take care. Until we meet again, ciao!